Ambassador Thrixco had attended diplomatic gatherings across 17 sectors, but nothing had prepared him for the unsettling presence of the human delegation. While every other species filled the council chamber with their natural sounds, the Zentarians' melodic humming, the Krell's rhythmic clicking, the Vorthok's subsonic rumbling, the humans sat in perfect, unnatural silence. It was Captain Elena Vasquez who had first demonstrated humanity's most terrifying trait, though she had done so without saying a word. The crisis had begun during the fourth day of negotiations over mining rights in the Epsilon sector. The hegemony representatives, a notoriously aggressive species known for their intimidation tactics, had grown frustrated with the slow progress of diplomatic discourse. Their war leader, Gorthmok, had begun the traditional hegemony threat display, standing to his full 3-meter height, extending his razor-sharp appendages, and releasing the pheromones that typically sent other species into submissive panic. The Zentarians had immediately begun their distress harmonics. The Krell had retreated into their shells. Even Ambassador Thrixco felt his breathing apparatus constrict in response to the chemical assault. The humans did nothing. Captain Vasquez remained seated, her hands folded calmly in her lap. Her breathing stayed steady. Her heart rate, according to the biomonitors all delegates wore for safety purposes, actually decreased. Most unnervingly, she maintained direct eye contact with Gorthmok throughout his entire display, her expression completely neutral. When the war leader finished his intimidation ritual, silence filled the chamber. Not the comfortable quiet that sometimes marked diplomatic pauses, but something deeper and more profound. The humans had created a void where sound should exist, and somehow that absence became more threatening than any roar or battle cry. Curious, Captain Vasquez finally said, her voice carrying easily through the chamber despite its soft tone. On our homeworld, we have a saying, empty vessels make the most noise. Gorthmok's appendages twitched. He was a veteran of 100 diplomatic intimidations, yet something in the human stillness made his combat instincts trigger warning signals he didn't understand. Dr. Kesrin, the council's xenopsychologist, leaned toward Ambassador Thrixco. The bio readings are unprecedented, she whispered. The human stress indicators suggest complete calm, but her neural activity has increased by 40%. It's as if her brain is operating at combat efficiency while her body remains at rest. What Dr. Kesrin couldn't detect were the calculations running through Captain Vasquez's mind. In the space of heartbeats, she had identified 17 different ways to neutralize Gorthmok using only items available in the council chamber. She had mapped the positions of every delegate, calculated optimal escape routes, and formulated contingency plans for 6 different escalation scenarios, all while sitting perfectly still. The hegemony demands immediate compliance with our territorial claims, Gorthmok snarled, his translator struggling with the guttural intensity of his native language. No, Captain Vasquez replied. The simplicity of her response sent ripples of confusion through the assembly. Most species would have offered counter-proposals, demanded concessions, or at least attempted negotiation. The human had simply refused. You dare defy the hegemony's might? Gorthmok advanced toward the human delegation, his massive frame casting a shadow across their section of the chamber. Captain Vasquez still didn't move. Her second-in-command, Commander Chen, remained equally motionless beside her. Both humans watched Gorthmok approach with the same unsettling calm, their silence somehow becoming more oppressive with each step he took. On Earth, Commander Chen spoke, without looking away from the approaching war leader, we have creatures called ambush predators. They can wait motionless for hours, days even, until the perfect moment presents itself. Are you threatening us, human? Gorthmok demanded. Not at all, Captain Vasquez said. We're simply sitting here, quietly. But there was something in that quietness that made every combat-experienced being in the chamber suddenly aware of their own vulnerability. The humans weren't displaying submission or fear. They were exhibiting the terrible patience of creatures that had evolved to think before they acted, to plan before they struck. Ambassador Thrixco found himself studying the human delegation with new eyes. Their species had been remarkably peaceful since joining the Galactic Council, quick to offer aid and slow to take offense. He had assumed this made them weak. Now he realized it might make them the most dangerous species in the galaxy. "The bio readings are extraordinary," Dr. Kesrian continued her whispered commentary. "Every other species shows elevated stress responses during confrontation. The humans' readings suggest they're actually more relaxed now than they were during the opening ceremonies." The standoff continued for several long minutes. Gorthmok, despite his intimidating presence, began to show signs of uncertainty. His species was designed for quick, overwhelming displays of dominance. They weren't equipped to handle an opponent that simply waited. Finally, Captain Vasquez spoke again. "War Leader Gorthmok, you should know that my species has a gift for silence. We can sit quietly and think for very long periods. Sometimes we think about poetry or mathematics or the nature of existence." Her voice remained perfectly level. "Sometimes we think about more practical matters." The implications of that statement settled over the chamber like a cold wind. Here was a species that could remain perfectly calm while calculating, planning, analyzing. A species that turned confrontation into an opportunity for strategic thinking rather than emotional response. Gorthmok stepped back, his intimidation display finally faltering. For the first time in his military career, he had encountered an opponent that couldn't be bullied, threatened, or frightened into submission. An opponent that met aggression not with counter-aggression, but with something far more unsettling: thoughtful, patient consideration of all available options. The negotiations resumed an hour later, with significantly more productive results. The hegemony, perhaps for the first time in their expansion history, agreed to a compromise solution. As the delegates filed out of the chamber, Ambassador Thrixco overheard Commander Chen speaking quietly to her captain. "Think they finally understand?" she asked. "Perhaps," Captain Vasquez replied, "though I suspect we'll need to demonstrate our capacity for thoughtful silence a few more times before word spreads properly." Ambassador Thrixco made a mental note to update his species' intelligence files on humanity. Next to their entry, he would add a single, crucial observation: the species that thinks before it acts. Approach with extreme caution. After all, any species that could weaponize patience itself was not one to be taken lightly.